Hello and you're welcome to Business Highlights on Trust TV, where we take you through some of the biggest economic and business developments of the week. Yes, we take a look at how it affects the Nigerian out there. All right, so we're going to be starting off the show with the stock market report. Well, the all-share index increased by 0.63% for the week ending August 26, 2022, helping the Nigerian stock market reach a bullish closing price. This comes after the previous week's fall of 0.59%. The benchmark index ASI increased by 0.63% to close the week at 49,682.15 points, up from 49,661.87 points it had at the end of the previous week. The market capitalization also increased, ending the week at 26.8 trillion naira. The results in a negative 1.37% month-to-date performance and a 16.31% year-to-date gain for the Nigerian stock market. The financial services industry dominated the activity chart in terms of share volume traded, trading 723.125 million shares for 5.209 billion naira in 9,122 deals, which contributed 79.08% and 34.13% respectively to the overall turnover volume and value. The conglomerates industry came in third with a turnover of 36.089 million shares for 72.383 billion naira in 527 trades, and the consumer goods industry came in second with 51.097 million shares worth 4.668 billion naira in 2,610 deals. The top three gainers for the week were Japan Gold, M-Benefit and FCMB, and they were up by 9.68, 7.14 and 7% respectively. And the top three losers were Ella Lakes, Vitafoam and NPF Microfinance Bank by 10, 9.78 and 9.09% respectively. More to come after the break. You're welcome back to Business Highlights on Trust TV, and once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng, and we're going to be taking a look at the proliferation of counterfeit goods in the Nigerian market. As a matter of fact, there's so many counterfeit goods out there that you can barely even tell the real from the fake. Now, joining me in the studio today, I have Faiz Mohammed Ali, and he's going to be joining our discussion. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, tell me, what has been your own experience out there? Have you ever found yourself in that situation where you thought you were buying something original, but at the end of the day, it was faker than dyed hair?
I'm not sure there's any way that I would be able to know. It's estimated that at least 50% of the goods that are in circulation in Nigeria are counterfeit goods. So I would probably be buying something that I thought was an original product that I would find out later, or probably wouldn't even know is actually counterfeit because it's such a very good replica of the original item.
Yeah, but you know, with these type of fake goods, they, you know, even when you think, oh, it's so good, at some point it will damage quicker than the original. And you know, it's just, it's really scary. Now, taking a look at counterfeit products, of course, we have so many fake things out there. There's medicine, there are cables, there are different things that, of course, could actually affect the quality of life that you have. So we're going to be taking a look at an interview with the CEO of Coleman Cables, Mr. George Onafo-Okon. And here it is.
Piracy is a problem in this country. Cable adulteration, cable copying, we've seen that. Unfortunately, my own belief is that you need to fight piracy with capacity rather than just go head-on fighting piracy. Now, the problem with piracy is only money being made. No pirate or criminal does anything for normal profit, because if they're doing normal profit, they as well should be my distributor. But they want exceptional profit, which means they need to cut corners. Now, you have a problem with, everybody knows made in Nigeria, but it's good. But you have issues with people underspecking, understating whatever the weight of the cable is or whatever the diameter of the cable is in order to just get away with more money. So when people think they're saving 10% or 20% from a Coleman cables for another one that is cheaper, they're actually losing 40-50% of that cable. And I'll give you an instance. Now, a 1.5 mm diameter, which is one of the most commonly used cables for switches that you have, 1.5 mm squared is actually a 1.38 mm diameter copper cable inside it with insulation. For the pirated or the adulterated cable, 99% of them are less than 1.1 mm in diameter. So I've taken out about 20-30% of the material, even as much as sometimes we see 1 mm, which means they're taking out almost 40% of the material. But they'll expand the PVC and put 1.5 mm square. But they'll be selling the cable at 10% cheaper than a Nigerian cable. You've already lost 40% of the material. To make matters worse, they will even shorten the length of the cable. The standard SON standard for cable coil in Nigeria is 100 meters, not plus or minus. If you like, put 100 and plus, but it cannot be less than 100 meters. Nigerians will buy these cables cheaper, but these cables are coiled at 60 meters. So the guy has taken out 40% of the material. He's taking out another 40% of the length of the cable. The profit is about 60-70%. But he's told you that his cable is 20% cheaper than, or 10% cheaper than a 100-meter cable that is standard. You actually saved nothing. You actually gave the guy a lot more money, and you have been penny wise, pound foolish. Unfortunately. And that is the selling point they sell to everybody. And that doesn't work. Secondly, we also see that capacity was an issue. We needed to make sure cable is available nationally, affordable nationally. So we built capacity first before fighting this thing. So that for every adulterated cable that comes off the shelf, there must be a cable made in Nigeria on the top of the shelf that is affordable, that is as competitive. And that was the key. So that was our own driving fight for it. It's worked thus so far. But we still need to do a lot more. We need to get a lot more support from SOM that we're seeing. We need to get a lot more coordination being done. Because in ours, for instance, for every cable you buy, there's an average weight of the coil in there. If that average weight is off minus 2-3-4%, that cable is not real. And if you see the 10%, 15% variation, you know that that cable is not real. Simple weight scale of any weight scale, even in your house, you put that, randomly take a couple of cables because the weight scale are on it, put them on it and see whether it gives you that exact weight or gives you a weight approximately almost the same. And those are the key things that will make a success story for us to correct this piracy, adulteration, faking, copying that is happening in the market. It's unfortunately it's happening, but a lot more needs to be done. But we believe it would work based on some of these things that we said. Most importantly, 99% of the time, fire outbreaks in any building is caused by substandard cable, most of the time. So, because what happens is that every cable has a carrying capacity, which is a current carrying capacity of which it can carry. Now, if I've underspec the cable, I put a load on it, the cable cannot handle it. Now, when that cable cannot handle it, it basically eats up the cable. You see what happens in cable? Those current carrying capacity prevent the insulation from overheating up. Now, you eat up that cable beyond its limit because you're now putting on more load. The cable eats up. Now, what also is worse is that all our cables are fire retardant, fire resistant. If I burn any of our cables today, and I can do a sample for you if you want, you'll find out the cable will not burn out. It will literally burn till you see it go dark, but there'll be no flame. Immediately you remove, it's supposed to literally go off instantaneously. Now, what happens with most of this substandard cable, unfortunately, is they bring in this cable and this, even the insulation is not fire retardant. And that is terrible. Now, because what happens in most houses, when you look at it, when you build a house, your cross point of the cable is at the roofing point. You're taking the cable off the roof, onto the other side, back down again. Now, what is on your roof? It's wood with the aluminium or the steel on it. Once your cross point catches fire, it catches fire with the wood and it brings the whole house down. That is why a fire started off by, especially a house which has been built in the last 20, 30 years now, are all conduit cables, which means you can't even see when it happens. Nobody sees the wiring. They're not surface wiring anymore. They're conduit wiring. So when this fire starts, you find out that 90% of people will find out late because they don't see the fire when it starts. They don't see the roof when it's catching fire, and the fire takes the whole house down. It is very bad. We shouldn't be penny wise, pound foolish. We shouldn't be kobo saving and then losing nairas. It doesn't work. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to save some money, 10%, 20%, which is not really a savings as I explained earlier, but you burn an investment down. A housing project or any type of project in infrastructure is about 10% maximum to 15% of the total expenditure. Now, why would you for 10% or 20% burn down 85% or 90% of your investment of your house where you're sleeping in or your project, what you are spending the money on? It is not worth the money. And I think we need to take that advice very seriously, that for that peace of mind, especially where you're sleeping, where you're working, where you put your business, where you put your factory, where you're putting your finance structure, it is not worth saving 1 naira, 2 naira for the cost of a whole building. It's just not worth it. So we need to rethink when we're making those decisions that we should not joke with our life when it comes to cable. And it's not worth it because it's life-threatening. And for me, I go to sleep every day because I have a simple philosophy in life when it comes to business. Look, 2 philosophies of it which are critical. I will not do any business that will mean someone knocking my door. I can open that door with a smile. I don't need it. Secondly, I don't want to do any business in my life that will put any person's life at risk. Most importantly, that will make one person, one human being cry after that business. It is not worth it. I'd rather go to sleep. So why would you compromise with people's life when you don't even need one person crying after one business transaction or doing business with you or trading with you? We don't need it. So it's a good philosophy for us. It's a good philosophy for the family. It's a good philosophy for the business. And it's kept us where we are today. Because nobody would say they do business with Coleman and you end up crying. We'd rather not do the business or lose the money. It is better for us to be at a loss of funds.
All right, that was the CEO of Coleman Cables, Mr. George Onafowokon, yes, telling us about the dangers of counterfeit products, dangers of counterfeit cables in specific, actually. And, you know, when you think about things like that, when you look at the number of fire outbreaks, as a matter of fact, even during the news, it was one of the stories. There was a recent
building collapse.
Yes, a recent building collapse, and a life was lost. And this is because a lot of the, you know, materials that are being used are substandard materials, and you're putting the lives of people in danger, which is the reason why I actually do like his philosophy, where he says, you know what, as long as I'm doing this in, you know, the right way and nobody's crying because I am out there trying to cut corners. And I think that's a philosophy that many business people out there need to learn. People who deal in manufacturing, do not cut corners, because you're talking about the life of people out there. All right, so what do you think about the things that he said? My new favorite word, by the way, is now kobo-wise. That's gonna be my new theme for the rest of my spendings, should I say.
Kobo-wise, naira foolish.
Kobo-wise, naira foolish. I like that, I like that. All right, so but what do you think about, you know, the facts that he threw out there?
I think, just like he's saying, the ultimate victims of counterfeit goods are the consumers themselves. You're exposing yourself not just to health and safety risks, but also the government is being cheated actually of taxes and levies that might be put into social infrastructure. So it is true, I think, that the very fact that criminal enterprise exists that makes counterfeiting such a profitable industry is a problem that needs to be addressed very seriously. All
right, so now talking about the counterfeiting market, it's quite huge here in Nigeria. Like you said earlier on, 50% of products in the market is actually fake. And this is not just about cables. It's literally about everything. You're buying lotions, there's a possibility it's fake. You're buying juice, there's a possibility it's fake. You're buying shoes and there's a possibility that it's fake. And you know, this is is a real danger that so many people have to actually face. But why is it that the market for counterfeiting in Nigeria has, been able to thrive as much as it has?
I think there are three main reasons. The first one is new technologies. The advent of advanced machineries and increased processing power with computing makes it much easier for criminal enterprises to create replicas of products that they usually wouldn't be able to. It's become cost effective, basically, to create fake products. The second one has to do with the simple fact that counterfeiting in itself is an indication that an emerging market is growing. And the fact that it's growing means that there's going to be competition. Competition means that there are going to be variances in the market price. Wherever there are variances, that gives the opportunity for these illegal enterprises to come in and make up for the difference in market share, because there are always going to be people who can afford these products legitimately, and there are going to be people who can't afford them, which leads us to the third reason, really. There has been an increase in particular brands and particular products that are attractive to buy. So it didn't used to be, let's say 20 years ago, that it mattered what type of phone you were using. But now there are specific brand phones, specific mobile technologies.
Basically like having designer wear.
Like having an iPhone is a designer phone. And so having a counterfeit iPhone can be sold for a very large amount, which is profitable for illegal industry.
That's really interesting. But taking a look at this now, of course, we do have people within the country themselves who do manufacture these products.
That's true.
They make the phones, they make the blenders, they make a lot of things. Now, what can actually be done to sort of legalize these illegal businesses? Rather than them feeling like they need to be hiding in the corner, why not bring them out where they can actually manufacture and produce under the watchful eye of the government?
I think there are already various government instruments in place for this. The Consumer Protection Agency, for example, is well equipped to do this. However, the problem is that there is such a huge gap between the formal and informal sector in Nigeria that there isn't enough data for us to be able to ascertain exactly how much of these goods are counterfeit goods and how many of them are safe enough to be put into production. And so it's really a data question. It's really a question of the government taking the initiative to go out into the marketplace and find out exactly what standards are being used to ensure that these products are good enough to be in the marketplace.
All right, so we'll take a look at some facts about counterfeit products that have basically proliferated Nigeria's market. Now, global economies actually lose as much as $3 billion yearly to counterfeit products. Back in 2014, former Director General of SUN, Joseph Odumudu, stated that 1 million jobs were lost over 20 years due to counterfeiting. Nigeria loses an estimated sum of 200 billion naira annually to counterfeit medicines. Now, this part actually scared me a lot. Now, there is still a survey that came out from Pfizer, and they said that 40% of Pfizer medicines in Nigeria are sourced from illicit parallel importation, and that's also a form of counterfeiting. Now, this is, of course, health is your wealth. You're talking once again about the lives of people. Now, taking a look at these figures, what comes to mind? Now, we'll continue to roll out the facts as my guest here speaks.
I think criminal enterprise is probably the biggest reason why counterfeiting is a huge issue, because specifically when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry, they are putting millions of lives at risk. Illicit medication and poor medicines that can cause adverse health effects, not just in the immediacy, but for the population over a long period of time. If you're consistently taking drugs that have adverse effects on your health, it means that long term you're going to have even more costs to deal with medically. And so I think not just the pharmaceutical industry, but any industry that is engaged in the creation and production of counterfeit materials is dangerous, mostly because the profits usually go to criminal enterprises, either through money laundering or drug trafficking or sometimes even terrorism.
It's basically what Mr. George was actually trying to point out, where you're trying to cut corners and save money, but at the end of the day, there is a major loss.
Exactly.
And in this regard, when you're taking a look at things like medicine and also looking at the money that the country itself has lost, it's money that's very difficult to get back, and it's gone. All right, so let's also take a look at some other facts. Nigeria loses about 150 billion naira every year to fake battery products. Now, imagine that. Looking at this figure, what do you think?
I think it's interesting that fake battery products are that much amount of the share. I would have expected electrical equipment to actually be much higher, but it does make sense when you consider the power industry in Nigeria and the fact that there are so many generators in use. So extra batteries would be something that would be in large supply, or would be needed to be in large supply.
All right, so now the second biggest producer of fake goods is Turkey, and they're accounting for 3.3% of customs seizure, followed by Singapore with 1.9%, Thailand and 1.63%, India 1.2%, and Morocco with 0.6%. Also, China is also on that list, and of course, it basically takes the cake on this situation. What can actually be done to stop or end the proliferation of these products into the country? It's a lot, 50%.
It's a huge operation.
And I mean, we have so many Nigerians who are consistently flying to places like Turkey, flying to places like China. Have we come to a point where bringing in these counterfeit products need to be made illegal?
The funny thing is they already are illegal. Nigeria has no standing anti-counterfeiting law, so to speak. Although there are various legal frameworks that do deal with illicit trade, what usually happens is a combination of civil action and administrative approaches. There are, of course, several legal frameworks that deal with counterfeit goods. Everything from the Copyrights Act to the NAPTIP Act to the Police Act, Section 4 of the Police Act. However, let's look at a couple of institutions. For example, when the customs is mandated with charging all levies and taxes for goods that come into the country and then remitting them to the government. And in the absolute prohibition list, everything that has to do with counterfeiting is under the purview of customs mandate. However, there is no functioning system currently that the Customs Department has in order to identify counterfeit goods as they're coming into the country. So it's really more of an identification issue. The second problem we have is that, for example, Section 4 of the Police Act does allow for a rights holder to come and complain to the police that there has been a case of counterfeit goods coming into the country, or they've been duped by buying counterfeit goods. But you see, what we see in both instances is that both agencies are actually reactive instead of proactive to solving the problem, which means that the complaint has to be made to them first before they can actually go ahead and take action. And I think that's the main issue that we have. To be fair, there has been a lot of improvement in terms of fighting counterfeit products in Nigeria over the past couple of years.
There's always some seizure going on by customs, so yeah.
Exactly, but there's still much to be done.
Yes, of course, I completely agree. But yes, at the end of the day, picking from Mr. George Onafowokon, don't be kobo wise and then naira foolish. At the end of the day, you're going to end up spending way more than what you actually bargained for. For example, cables, you don't want to have a fire outbreak and then end up spending more money to, replace the things that you lost, and of course, the trauma that you could possibly go through. All right, so we have come to the end of our show for today, and I would like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Faiz Mohammed Ali, policy analyst. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you.
And to our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Do well to follow us on our social media platforms. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. All you need to do is look up Trust TV, and you'll find us there. Well, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Please do come back again. Let's talk numbers.